Hello, I'm Jim Wetherbe with Entrepreneur Innovation and Exchange, or EIX, and we have a wonderful interview to share with you today and have a guest, David Bateman, who is the chairman, CEO, or co-CEO and founder of SitePro. So why don't you tell us a little bit about SitePro and what business you're in?
Sure. Thanks, Jim. First of all, I'd like to say, appreciate you having us on EIX today. I certainly wished as I was coming up as an entrepreneur that there was, an organization like this to, be around as a reference for, all the trials and tribulations that we typically run into as entrepreneurs. But so SitePro is an energy tech company. We are the leading provider of automation solutions and technology services in the upstream and midstream oil and gas business. Our goal is to, allow our customers real-time data and information to help make their operations, optimize their operations for cost savings, efficiency, and ultimately safety and environmental responsibility.
Now, for some of our viewers that might not understand the oil industry, to really lay it out for them, could you talk about what problem existed and how your entrepreneurial efforts solved it?
Absolutely. So whenever, broadly speaking, what SitePro does is we help people optimize their operations to, reduce cost, increase profitability, and make their operations more safe and environmentally responsible. What does that mean, really? How do we do that? The problem in the energy industry is it's always, especially with commodity prices, pressures. There's always this ongoing effort to reduce cost and become more efficient. And essentially, by implementing SitePro's technology, our customers are able to do that. They're able to, remotely monitor, control, operate.
So that doesn't require on-site visits, which would be the case before.
Right. So, it changes the way on-site visits and things like that were going. Historically, field operators and personnel will go visit tons of wells and facilities on a daily basis, kind of making routes, as they call them.
Okay.
With the SitePro technology, they're able to go to problem areas only and kind of manage by exception to, help reduce cost and really focus on the high impact activities.
A little bit like having a home security system. As long as everything's fine, I don't need to know, but if something doesn't look right, you get alerted, and you do that through your command centers.
That's a great analogy, yeah. And we offer that as a service, and we also, enable our customers to do that themselves with our software.
Okay, terrific. That really helps me understand the business. And you've actually are approaching 60 million in revenue, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
150
that's right.
employees?
Yeah, it's been exciting. We just completed our first acquisition, and things are rolling.
That's great. Well, let's back up a little bit in time, because particularly our students like to hear these stories. Was there anything in your youth that sort of was a telltale sign that you might be an entrepreneur, that as you look back, you can see that now?
My dad always tells a funny story. There was a big ice storm whenever I was a kid, and I went around. I didn't even have a driver's license, and I went around to all the houses where the ice storm was, and I knocked on their door, and I said, "Hey, would you like me and my guys to chop up this wood and get it off your property?"
Yeah.
And then, I told all my buddies, they were, had low income, minimum wage jobs. I said, "Look, I'll pay all of y'all $20 an hour if you drive around and help me. And by the way, I need your truck." And my dad had some trailers and some of the equipment and everything. And we went around and we made, I think, like $10,000 or $12,000 in a weekend, and then I paid all my buddies $20 an hour, which was great pay for them. But they got mad at me for making them that much money off of it. So that was kind of an early sign. There was a lot of these little funny ventures like that throughout my childhood, like that. But whenever I first got to Texas Tech, where I went to college, started really meeting some of real entrepreneurs in business and everything, and that's where some of those initial ideas and everything got fostered and created.
Well, let's talk about that. At what point did you make the decision that you were going to be an entrepreneur?
Oh man, I always tell the story. Aaron, my partner in SitePro, we always used to sit outside of the engineering key at Texas Tech and talk about how we weren't going to work for some big corporation and we were going to change the world. And then I went to go work for a big corporation right out of college. And so we really kind of put our heads together and always thought we wanted to do something to change the way things were done. Particularly in oil and gas, technology was a little bit slower to move into that space than other areas. And so we saw that as an opportunity. We figured that we could develop software, technology, a better way of doing things. And then that lended itself for us to, kind of create SitePro. We happened to, it was really kind of a funny story. I met a guy at a wedding here in Lubbock, and the only reason we went to the wedding, it was my wife's friend's little brother. And, we got invited by circumstance because it was in our city. They were from Albany, and then the wife was from Friona, and they met here. I met a guy there and, told him, yeah, my partner Aaron and I were starting a company automating processes in the oil field. What did that even mean, right? And then the guy said, really? Well, I'm working for a couple of guys who are putting in a bunch of saltwater disposal wells, or SWDs, and they don't like the guy that they have. Can you meet next Tuesday? And then we said, well, absolutely. And, ended up meeting the guys, and they said, look, guys, we're having a problem with a lot of trucks coming to a particular facility, unloading, and, it's spilling, causing leaks and things like that. If y'all can fix that problem, we'll keep you really busy. And, we where there's a will, there's a way, and, not turning down an opportunity, Aaron and I buckled down, and, I remember pulling out of one of the high rises in downtown Midland, and, in my truck, and I looked over at Aaron and I said, hey, do you know how to install the VFDs and all these things that these guys are talking about? And he said, well, I was sure as hell hoping you did, since you just told those guys we'd do it. So I guess the bottom line is whenever there's an opportunity like that, as an entrepreneur, you just have to jump on it.
True. And sometimes you do have to kind of get it over your head in order to make the progress that needs to be made.
Whenever we were a smaller company, I used to always say, let's get the work and then figure out how to do it.
Right.
Now that changes whenever you get to be a bigger company and you standardize things and stuff like that. But, I'd like to, we're lucky here at SitePro to have a lot of that entrepreneurial spirit still in our culture.
Sure. Now, one of the interesting things you mentioned to me is you started off small, of course, and you started growing. And one of the challenges was hiring people, and the type of people who would apply for a job to work for a company weren't necessarily the type of risk takers, do whatever it takes, put in whatever amount of time it takes that the original entrepreneurs had. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. One thing you do see, especially as a company grows, and I would also say, kind of with the caveat on this question, is we really started hitting our growth stride whenever we put together our upper management team. Whenever we finally, one of the biggest, I'll answer that in two ways. One of the biggest things, the challenges that we had as entrepreneurs, Aaron and I, is we had to realize that we can't do everything. We have to divide up and, let's reduce our focus to what we're really good at, and let's bring in other people who are good at these other things, and let's build our team that way. Right. So as you build the team and everything, I think, you won't always, you'll find a lot more subject matter expertise and everything, but they may not be the entrepreneurial risk takers or, things like that that we weren't, or maybe they're just smarter than we were.
Well, you mentioned you were never reluctant. In fact, that's kind of one of your principles. You're never reluctant to hire people smarter than you and take advantage of that.
Totally. I always tell people, anybody that comes to SitePro, I mean, Aaron and I are both 34 years old. We don't claim to know anything. We don't claim to know, a certain area of expertise better than the next guy. But this is an environment, and I feel like what makes us successful here is we try to hire the best people we can, and we get out of their way and let them do their job, let them do their work, let them be successful, let them have ownership in it, and that's worked really well for us.
Now, every entrepreneurial adventure has its ups and downs. What were some sort of defining moments where you had to really step up, take some risk, question maybe what you were doing?
Oh man, that's a good one. I mean, there's been so many trials and tribulations along the way. I think a couple funny ones that come to mind was, for SitePro, 2012 through, those of you familiar with oil and gas, I mean, 2012, 13, and 14, we entered a hot market. We could do no wrong. Then the downturn hit. I always tell people, the downturn hit in late 2014, and I always tell people we had to learn how to actually run a business.
The margins covered a lot of mistakes.
The margins covered a lot of mistakes prior to that. And so, two things that come to mind was whenever we first started the business, having to, basically work for no pay and not having, do things without money, get creative with resources.
You went without pay for almost 6 months?
6 months, yeah.
Okay.
And then, the another one that comes to mind is, during the downturn, things were really tight. And I remember, basically, loaning the company money to make payroll while my wife was in labor with my first son.
And how did she respond when she found
Well, she thought I was texting somebody. She said, "Who are you texting? I'm in labor."
So many entrepreneurs say that making that payroll is one of the biggest challenges during the early years of being able to survive.
That's right.
Yeah. What about any mentors have been along the way that you relied on? Did you have a mentor?
You know, I've been fortunate. You know, I've been really fortunate when it comes to mentors. I have many different mentors that, you know, help me in various aspects of my business and my life. You know, some personal, some friends, some business colleagues, and you know, it's been really good to have a sounding board of, you know, people, you know, many different people like yourself and other people who I've been able to talk to about ideas, challenges, issues, opportunities over the years. And I would encourage any entrepreneur, that's probably one of the key things that you can do, you know, to add value to yourself and your entrepreneurial spirit and what you're trying to build, is seek out as many mentors as possible and, you know, listen to them, take their advice. Maybe not exactly make the decision exactly like they would do, but take it in and make your own decision. And maybe if it's a big one, talk to 2 or 3 of them, and they'll kind of help you formulate, you know, a good way forward. And I've been very fortunate and pretty open-minded about mentors. I mean, I have mentors from, you know, like I said, guys like you. I've had, you know, other professors, business associates, even some of my employees are mentors to me in certain ways.
That's nice humility on your part. Servant leader, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of one mentor, how about that boat story that you have? You've got a boat sitting out there in your warehouse, and how did that come into existence?
You know, my dad. He, whenever I was in early high school, you know, I was. You know, my dad wanted to keep me on the same path, and you know, I'd kind of had some challenges, and he told me, he said, well. You know, I basically had to pay him back for some things that I tore up. And he told me, he said, I tell you what.
You were about 15 or 16?
Yeah, I was about 15 or 16, didn't even have a driver's license yet. And I worked almost 2 summers and saved up a lot of money, and I had to pay I tore up one of his trucks. And, you know, I told him, you know, here's the money to pay you back for the truck and everything. And he ripped up the check and he told me, he said, well, why don't you go buy a hunting and fishing boat with that money, and you know, and I'll help you get it going and everything along the way. Well, my mom thought he was crazy, but it ended up being something that kind of kept me out of trouble from drinking at night, because we were always getting up early to go hunting and fishing.
Well, and the other thing, he taught you the discipline of paying up for what
you owning responsibility of your own decisions.
So, sounds like a smart dad. But it sounds like you're really good at using sort of a collective wisdom approach for people within the oil industry. Of course, you were introducing a lot of technology to the oil industry that had not been there previously.
That's right.
And so you've got these command centers and so forth where you can watch properties and wells all over the state.
Yeah, all over the country. Yeah.
So. Let's talk, though, about, do you have any sort of motto or principle that you try to live by on a day-to-day basis with your work?
You know, I have. There's a couple ones that come to mind. You know, I always talk to all my guys here about a focused effort. Yeah. A mentor of mine, whenever I first started the business, I said, what should we do to make this business successful, or what should I focus on? I had a couple of different opportunities. He said, make a list of everything that you've ever done or everything that you're working on, in order of the highest impact it can make for yourself financially, for society, whatever. And then he said, take the page and rip off the bottom 3/4 and never think about it again.
Yeah.
And then so I call that, a focused effort, and that's what we've tried to do here. That's
Well, there is a tendency for urgent things to drive out important things. I mean,
that's right.
Planning's important, but you can get caught up in so many putting out fires that you don't really focus on the long run issues.
That's right. That's right.
That works good. What advice would you have for students who are interested in entrepreneurship? As someone, you're kind of interesting, because a lot of entrepreneurs drop out of school, but you went all the way to school. You got your MBA,
right?
Right. So, but what advice would you offer to students?
What I would offer to students, I would say that, number one, you got to be willing to work hard. Number two, reach out to resources then in various areas, mentors, coaches. One thing that I found about the entrepreneurial community, and it's interesting what y'all are doing with EIX, is entrepreneurs love to give back. They love to help other entrepreneurs, and I think there's a big audience for that. And you're not going to get it sitting behind your desk or not getting on the phone and getting out there to meet people. So it's really important that you get out and network and meet other people in the community, because you never know who your next mentor, business partner might be. Heck, Aaron was the first guy I met at Texas Tech. Ended up having classes with him, and now he's my business partner.
Well, they do say that as you get older, it's more about who you know than as opposed to what you know, and your network is what you build over the years.
That's right.
But you make a good point about how entrepreneurs like to give back. Research actually shows they are twice as philanthropic as a non-entrepreneurial executive. And so, in fact, EIX, of course, is funded by the Dick Schultz Foundation, the founder of Best Buy, and his whole goal is to try to just help entrepreneurs succeed as a way to help the economy in the most patriotic sense.
Yeah,
because all
right.
jobs are created by entrepreneurs.
That's right.
Well, hey, listen, you've shared some great wisdom that will be very helpful to students and practitioners in the field, so thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.